What if PALDEAN TAUROS was in Gen 1 OU? This is going over all three versions, the regular fighting version, the blaze version, and the aqua version. Before I even go over any of these guys and their stats and move pool, let me just start by saying thank you. Thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. You have no idea how much that truly means to me. And I wanted to do something special. So for a while now, I think for 3 months, I've always planned on making PALDEAN TAUROS my 1,000 subscriber special. Which might seem weird, because it's a fighting type, and way more importantly, if you're using it, you're not using Tauros. So that would mean that it's just gonna be a bad Pokemon, right? Well, that's what I thought. And I was gonna say, no, even if, it's gonna be terrible, at the very least, this 1,000 subscriber special can help you really appreciate the regular Tauros. I'm not sure if you see how many tabs are open, but I'm gonna be real with you. We have 31 replays to go over. So, there's a bit of a spoiler alert. PALDEAN TAUROS is relevant. It's not just some garbage Pokemon that was gonna be a joke. This guy has legitimate things that he could be doing in OU. Is it better than using a regular Tauros? Probably not. But there is an argument. Not just for one of them, but for all three. All three of them have their own merits. Which is incredible. Now, let's start off with the worst thing about these guys, and that's their stats. Which I know sounds crazy. The stats like these would be great for Gen 1. Except for the context that, again, you're not using regular Tauros. So most of these are mostly the same. You got same attack, same HP, I think. Unfortunately, you have terrible special, but you don't have Blizzard anymore. So if that's the case, you don't care too much about having 30 special attack. And that 105 defense is actually pretty good. It's a lot bulkier than the regular Tauros. Or say a lot bulkier, but I think it's only bulkier by 10 points, I think. But still, being bulkier by 10 points can still help you in a lot of situations. Especially for taking body slams. But here's where you have to lose in order to get that. You lost 10 speed, which is huge. Because for one, that just makes it extremely hard to justify using over regular Tauros. Since in a mirror, the regular Tauros is always going to outspeed you. And second off, it's just bad for Gengar, because now Gengar outspeeds you, and unlike regular Tauros, he has super effective coverage against you. Not even Thunderbolt for Aqua, you have Psychic for all three of them, which is not good. And the worst part is that outside of having a Psychic weakness and a Dropeg weakness, you also don't have your normal stab anymore, which hurts so much. That's half the reason Tauros hits as hard as it does. Actually, wait, now that I think about it, I think it has more attack than Tauros too. Let me look this up. Tauros, yeah, it's 100 attack. So you technically hit a little bit harder, but without stab, it doesn't really matter. Now, luckily, Tauros still has some good things going for it. All three of them do. For starters, even though it's slower than regular Tauros, you still speed type with Zapdos, and 100 is an absolutely great speed stat to have. You have a 19% crit rate, you are faster than pretty much everything, and all the things that you're not faster than, outside of Tauros, you're probably losing to anyways. I don't think you need to be faster than Zapdos, Starmie, or Alakazam, because what were you going to do in the first place? And because if you're added bulk to your defense, the regular Tauros matchup is very winnable. Especially since you do have a stab move and double kick. which I know sounds funny. You might think you would rather want submission or low kick, but no. Double kick is by far its best stab move. In fact, I'm going to say double kick is just the best fighting move in Gen 1 OU in general. Normally, when I do these videos, a Pokemon is stuck with a low kick. And when it gets low kick, you hit as hard as a neutral Earthquake, assuming it's super effective. But you also have a flinch chance, which is alright, I guess. But luckily for double kick, it's 30, or actually no, I believe it's 15 base power. And then for each one of those, if you hit super effective, it's like 30. So that leads to like what? 60? So I think it's hitting, not that hard admittedly. But the thing you need to understand is the reason why Jolteon uses it. Because Jolteon hits even worse. Because Jolteon has like just an abysmal attack stat. And double kick just does horrible damage. But because of how good Jolteon's crit rate is, if it gets a crit on Chansey, it can actually 2-hit KO. Tauros here has way more attack at 110, gets stabbed, and it has just as good a crit rate at, like I said, 19%. So when Tauros gets a crit, another thing you need to know about double kick is, unlike in other gens, where each individual kick has a chance of getting a crit, in Gen 1, if you get a crit with one of them, you get a crit with both of them. So Tauros getting a critical double kick does absolutely absurd damage, especially against the normal types. It's no one's surprise, it's flat out just a 1-hit KO on Chansey. Which, that alone already gives Tauros Paldea a very good niche, since most likely Chansey is never going to risk the Tauros matchup. And another funny thing is that, because of how double kick works, even though if you get a crit, it works for both kicks, that's not the same thing for counter. So if you hit something with counter, and then you hit it with the second kick, counter will only do damage on the second kick. Which means a Paldean Tauros hitting something with a critical double kick, it can very well survive the counter immediately afterwards. Which is funny. Now as for coverage, he has Earthquake, Hyper Beam, and Body Slam. I'll go over some of the other moves once I go over to the other Paldean's Tauros forms. But it's weird. Like, I'm gonna say this is a good enough moveset. But to be honest, with Paldean Tauros, you only really want to fight the normal types. Which might make it seem like it's kind of bad. Which in some ways, it very well might be. You can go for Body Slam to fish for paralysis. Earthquake's probably your main attacking move. And Hyper Beam can finish things off. But you would definitely rather use regular Tauros. Now luckily, there's still some reason to use like the regular fighting Tauros over the other three. If you want to use it over regular Tauros, that's only because you want that fighting stab. Which admittedly is relevant. It does hit harder than a neutral Earthquake, which means you are hitting harder than a neutral low kick, or a super effective low kick. And if you get a crit, you're just actually, for the most part, deleting normal types. And you're using it over the other two forms because then you're not worrying about the weaknesses. Because Tauros Fire, he gets a lot of really good tools, but his fire typing does make him weak to Earthquake, which is unfortunate. And then Paldean Tauros Aqua has the water type, which makes it weak to electric and grass. So if you're scared of both of those, and you don't really don't care about the resistances, then their base form is the best one for you. I'm going to skip Blaze and go straight to Aqua, because Aqua doesn't have too much going for it, at least when it comes to like new moves. Because both of the Paldean Tauros forms only get like a few new moves. So for Aqua here, the most relevant one is Hydro Pump. Which means there's only two things that Aqua does better than regular and Blaze. And that's resisting ice and water moves. Which means you're the only one that has a significantly better matchup against Cloyster. And you can OHKO right on with Hydro Pump. Which is interesting, but to be honest, I think it's more so the matchup with Cloyster that makes it more relevant. So, definitely has its niches, especially since regular Cloyster is usually used as a Tauros check. So, that's good. And Rock Slide also does decent coverage. You're scared of Zapdos anyways, but luckily since you have a speed tie, it could ride the fight at 1v1. But I'm gonna say in most cases it's not really worth it. And before going over Blaze, I want to go over Raging Bull. The signature move, which unfortunately, because it's Gen 1 custom games, does not work properly. It's just a 90 base power normal move. So it's just takedown without the recoil and without the stab. As you can imagine, that's really bad. You would rather use Body Slam, which is just a little bit weaker and can paralyze. Double Edge, which is like, you have recoil, but you would get like 10 more base attack or power, or whatever, however you say it. Just in general, you don't bother with any of it on any of the forms. Pretty sure it also doesn't even break screens in Gen 1. So, there's just nothing to use here. As for PALDEAN Tauros, he's the only one that still gets Fire Blast, which as you can imagine, is a really big deal. Since, not only is it getting Stab on it, which is always pretty nice, but it's Gen 1, so you have a 30% chance to spread Burn, which in of itself is already pretty good. But the fact that being a fire type means you can't get burned yourself, if other Tauros try to spec in the Fire Blast, they try to burn your PALDEAN Tauros, this guy just completely walls that. Now, unfortunately, actually no, it's not unfortunately, it's actually very fortunate, it has Fire Spin, which Fire Spin is an incredibly good trapping move for Gen 1. I believe it's only 75 accuracy in Gen 1, but still, this is a Tauros that can pivot and trap, and with it being as fast as this, that's really good. But the reason why I said unfortunately is because I completely forgot about it when making the replays. Which is both a good and bad thing. I say that because it's not the worst thing in the world. There's only one matchup where that significantly changes the outcome, and that's Executor. Otherwise, for every other Pokemon, it's not like you would really want to watch PALDEAN Tauros' Fire Spin trap Chansey for a million years. So I'll explain how Fire Spin can change like a matchup when I go over them. But for the most part, I didn't think it was worth making another 31 replays, nor did I even think it was even worth remaking a third of them, just to see how Fire Spin does. It's something that I feel like I can just explain to you, and you can probably just guess yourself how good it would do just by watching it. I'm pretty sure I'm getting close to 200 of these what if videos, and it hasn't even been a year yet. Yeah, that's crazy. I don't even remember most of them. But let's get right into the replays now, shall we? We got a lot to go over, so yeah, this might take a while. In fact, I should probably have some water nearby me, because I do not know how this is going to go for my throat. But let's start off with the boy himself, Tauros. Spoiler alert, you're going to see a lot of different Tauros mirrors in this video. A critical body slam does about half, but so does double kick. Or no, it does way more than half. And even a critical body slam onto a Hyper Beam cannot kill you. And keep in mind that for a regular Tauros mirror, a critical body slam into Hyper Beam does kill. So this right here shows just how the extra 10 defense base power, or base stats, can actually change something very differently. It was just enough to where PALDEAN Tauros has a damage range where it can survive and defeat regular Tauros. By the way, if you like these type of videos, feel free to subscribe. It's been wild, just somehow making it to 1,000 after making videos for 2 years. But it feels pretty good, and I'd love to see you, I don't know, just watch more. I don't know what else to say. We have some few more with just regular of Tauros. Because even though it hits super effectively, even with a crit, it's not always guaranteed. Because obviously, it's Body Slam, Paralysis in Gen 1. That's always pretty funky. And Tauros regular can always just get a crit with Hyper Beam, which, yeah, I don't think it OHKOs at full HP. We're not using it at full HP anyways. So you can probably guess already just how this can be kind of relevant, or how things can change. And Fire Blast, I do think it's a fair thing to use against Paldean Tauros. However, again, you have a great crit rate, and you can still do a lot of damage. But I do think it's worth trying to do. So that's like when it comes to regular. But what about the other forms? I don't think there's much to talk about with Aqua, but it's worth going over. Because you can't really use Fire Blast on Aqua because it resists it. So you might be able to burn it, but even in a worst case scenario where you burn it, you can either just try to go for that crit on double kick, or you can just use Hydro Pump anyways. I know it only has 30 base special attack, but keep in mind that it's Gen 1. Everything has max stats anyways, so it's already using max attack and special attack. Not to mention, if it's burned, you might as well go for it, right? Now, obviously, the fire version is the most interesting, because Fire Blast just hits a lot harder, and if Tauros gets burnt, then Earthquake doesn't do as much. However, that is one thing that does really suck. You're slower than regular Tauros, who most likely will have Earthquake. You're never going to have what is in this replay, where it's Fire Blast and Earthquake. But I think it's pretty safe to say, if it has Earthquake, you might lose. It's probably not even worth trying to burn it. But if it's using Fire Blast to counter the other Tauros sets, you just do an absolutely fantastic job. Now for Snorlax, luckily you're faster, and unlike the Blaze version, you're not weak to Earthquake. Which means Snorlax, even with Reflect, isn't really that bad. Admittedly, not being a normal type and not being immune to paralysis from Body Slam is really annoying. But it's extremely likely that you're going to just keep forcing the Snorlax to go for rest. Because Snorlax, even with Reflect, is absolutely terrified of a crit. So no matter what, the Snorlax probably won't be able to go for a lot of Body Slams and fishing for paralysis. And as you can see there, a critical double kick does 3/4 of a Snorlax, which is insane. That's one Snorlax replay down. We got a few more to go over. Now, for Blaze, obviously it can burn, and it's really good that it can, because on non-burnt Snorlax's Earthquake, I think brought up Paldean Tauros to, I think it was 51%, so it can 3-hit KO in most circumstances, which is definitely not desirable, not gonna lie. But either way, it's still a pretty good matchup. Because, like, even if Earthquake does that much damage, obviously if it's Paldean Tauros Blaze, Snorlax is either scared of Fire Blast, or this is a situation where you can go for Fire Spin and pivot, because you're always going to be faster than the Snorlax. So I don't think there's anything good going on here for Snorlax. And Amnesia Wax doesn't do that much better against both Paldean, Blaze, as well as the regular form. They lose even harder, because they need to set up in order to do any damage, which, yeah, you're just not doing that to a Pokemon that can do that much damage to you. If a Pokemon can do 80 damage to a Snorlax, that definitely has merit, and we can't deny that. Again, is this better than using regular Tauros? I think with Blaze, having Fire Spin, there's definitely a good argument. That is definitely for sure. So now I'm gonna say maybe? The last one I wanted to show was Amnesia Wax versus Aqua. Because if Snorlax has Amnesia and Thunderbolt, maybe that can hurt the Tauros, but even then, since Tauros is faster than you, and you need to spend at least 2 moves just to maybe almost kill it, my money's always gonna be on Aqua. Especially since not all Amnesia Wax sets even use Thunderbolt. Might be more common with Paldean Tauros in the format, but I couldn't tell you. Oh, and one thing I will say, even if it's mostly really Paldean Tauros that has a real shot at being used instead of regular Tauros, him getting better inherently will make the other two better. Because the way you deal with those two is kinda different. So if you're using a Cloyster to try to beat Paldean and Blaze Tauros, well, I guess you'll see in a little bit, but you can just counter with water. Or if you're using like an electric type like Jolteon, or if you're using something like a ground type, you can just go for regular. It just gives Tauros in general, all 4 forms, just a lot of versatility. And you don't really know which Tauros you're going to face until you actually see it on screen. So you can very well use it to your advantage. Next off is Chansey. If Double Kick misses, that's a bit of an unfortunate situation. And, not gonna lie, I think while doing the replays, I missed at least twice. So for a little bit, I was wondering if Double Kick had worse accuracy in Gen 1. But that was just me getting bamboozled by Showdown. Now, Chansey is not having a good time here. As you can see, Double Kick does about 60%. So, Chansey kind of needs Paralysis. Not just Paralysis. I'm gonna say that Chansey needs Reflect. Because Paldean Tauros is just that scary of a Pokemon. And even then, it's not even always guaranteed to work. Because at any moment, Paldean Tauros can get a crit. And considering a non-crit can do like 60% to you, does anyone believe that Chansey can survive? I don't think so. Because even like regular Jolteon freaking 2-shots it, despite having no stab and really bad attack. This is why I truly believe Double Kick is the best fighting move, and not Submission, or even Will Kick. Because sure, Will Kick can flinch, but if you get a crit, and let's be real, if you're using a fighting type in Gen 1, you're probably using a fast one. And a crit Double Kick does just so much damage. Now, I don't think I bothered going with Aqua. Oh no, I did. Oh no, I meant Blaze. I meant Blaze, yeah. Aqua is different, because Aqua is actually weak to Bolt Beam Chansey. But even then, it is extremely winnable. As you can see there, like, it's a 2-hit KO, but I would honestly... Well, I guess it depends on what the Chansey does when it comes to Paralysis. It's technically could go either way, but one that I definitely am leaning towards Aqua to win. Because I don't think Chansey risks a crit in the first place. So it's not going to stay there and go for a Thunder Wave, or try to set up with Thunder, or Thunderbolt, or Thunder Reflect, etc. I don't see any of that going in your favor. Now, Zam, I don't think I need to explain this. Like, all the versions just die. I guess Blaze can pivot with Fire Blast at 2 HP. And by the way, that's something that, like, the Blaze version can do with Chansey, I guess. You can try to trap it, or if you think they're going to switch, go for Fire Spin. That's one way like that can be kind of neat. But I don't think it's good for putting Chansey in damage range, though. You technically could, but it'd be really annoying. And Cloyster. Now, both of you, like, 3-hit KO each other, which is honestly not that bad. I think that might be a 4-hit KO damage range for Cloyster, but even if it is, again, you have a great crit rate, so it's very winnable. Technically, regular Tauros can also win with a crit, and sometimes they can run Thunderbolt. I think Paldean Tauros here is just way more consistent. And even Blaze, Blaze can 3-hit KO with Fire Blast. And this was a really funny replay where it got not only a crit, but also a burn. Which is hilarious. And this is another one where Fire Spin significantly changes. Because here, instead of actually doing this in the first place, because as you're going to see with this replay here, Clamp kind of destroys you. But that doesn't really matter. Because now that I remember it has Fire Spin, instead of trying to go for a 3-hit KO, it can always trap the Cloister, pivot out, and then once the Cloister's at low HP or is asleep, you can try to go for double kick, if you think you can kill it. So not as bad here as I originally thought. Also, notice how we're not even halfway done with the replays yet? Yeah, there's so many. Last but not least, we got Aqua. And like I said, you resist all of Cloister's stabs. So, Cloister cannot do much here other than explode. And the way I rank things like this is that if a Pokemon is forced to explode in order to be the new Pokemon for the video, that's considered a great matchup. Because not only are you literally forcing them to get rid of your Pokemon, but way more importantly, if you know you can force them when it comes to certain damage ranges, that is very easy to play around. So like, in this situation, if you are assuming Cloister's going to explode because it has no other choice, you can very well go into Gengar right on. So overall, there's a really great matchup. Now, next off, we have Exeggutor. Regular gets absolutely destroyed. But now that I remember Fire Spin exists, as you can imagine, that is a really big deal. Because Fire Spin can help Exeggutor just get trapped while doing super effective damage. Unfortunately though, unlike other fire types, it won't be enough to put in a damage range. Because even though with super effectiveness, it's only a 3-hit KO. But still, it's technically possible to go for enough Fire Spins to put in a damage range. But I'm not sure if I would really rely on it. I guess it's better than nothing. And I also guess you can just pivot with it instead of actually staying in. But that's something I figure it's worth just talking about. Now for Gengar, and pretty much all of the other sets, you just lose very badly. You might be able to kill it with a lucky crit, but it can crit you too, and it's faster. So not the best matchup. And not very necessarily to your advantage, I would say. And then Jolteon, for most of them, just like regular Tauros. You two will shot each other, but Jolteon has a much probably better chance of critting. Not that you'd even risk it. But for Aqua, as you can imagine, the electric typing is just really bad for it. I don't think it's a full-on hindrance. Like, I don't think it's bad enough to where you shouldn't consider Aqua. Because while you lose to Jolteon, you also do extremely well against Cloister, like you just saw. So it's whatever you want, I would say. Now for Jinx. This is another one where Fire Spin is actually pretty relevant. Because Fire Spin means you don't have to worry about the Jinx hurting you. Which means you can just put it into... You can just keep stalling until you put it into a damage range. Where you can eventually kill it with Hyper Beam. Or if you're scared of something switching, maybe Double Kick instead. So... that's actually pretty good. When I get to the Tauros, that'll be one thing that will change significantly. So there's at least one version of Tauros that's a pretty good matchup against a Psychic type. That's pretty good, I would say. Now, I was interested, and I kept on saying that it's stronger than Neutral Earthquake, but what about Super Effective Earthquake? Well, you saw there, Earthquake did 38% with Rhydon. The Paldean Tauros did about 30-ish with Earthquake, I think. Actually, no, they both did like 34%, as I look at it. Let me look at that again. So, you use one double kick, that does 15, that's another 15. Okay, go for Earthquake, you did slightly more damage, it looks like. I don't know what's better. I think Earthquake does ever slightly more damage against at least Rhydon, since Rhydon has super good attack, or defense, I mean. However, keep in mind that if you get a crit with double kick, it is absolutely incredible, as you see there. That is a 2-hit KO. And it's doing way more damage than a critical Earthquake would be doing. So, I don't know what's better. And also there, see how that did 70% instead of 15%? So I think for that damage range, it did slightly more than a super effective Earthquake. So I'm pretty sure that double kick is better. But you gotta let me know in the comments. As for Blaze, this is yet another one where Fire Spin can have you pivot out. It doesn't really let you win the battle. However, with Burn, Fire Spin becomes a little bit better, which means you might be able to put into a damage range with double kick, which is funny, don't get me wrong. But I think Paldean Fire Tauros or Paldean Tauros Blaze is just way too valuable a Pokemon to just do that for. But luckily, something to write on, it can just be completely jump scared. Not only can Aqua Oko with Hydro Pump, but way more importantly, because of your added defense, you're just really good at switching into Rhydon as well. Which that's just a great matchup for everyone then. Now we're getting close to the end. Do I have to say anything here? Or will all of you just believe me if I told you that Swellow absolutely destroys? I'm just gonna put this in fast because I don't think there's much to go over here. Swellow just has way too high defense. And if it really wanted to, it can get rid of Surf just to F you over with Psychic. But that's probably only for Generation Jumble. Which, by the way, you should see that too. That's my own, like, tournament in seasons based off my what-if scenarios. Now, what about Aqua? Because you can actually resist Surf. Doesn't really change that much. All it really does is allow you to survive exactly one more attack, which doesn't help too much. So there's overall nothing you can really do to the Swellow, regardless of which form you use. Which I guess makes sense. Just don't bother with that in the first place. I don't even think you bother with regular Tauros, not gonna lie. Now, we have Starmie. It doesn't matter which form you use, Starmie can always win 1v1. It technically depends on the set, because if it's like Thunder Wave Surf, obviously Aqua can handle that. But I think as a whole, with the Paldean Tauroses, even if for the most part they're inferior to regular Tauros, I feel like just their existence in the format would make Starmie and Gengar 1 Psychic way more often. Because it's just, you're just a little bit more likely to have more use for it. And last but not least, we got Zapdos, so we got 3 different replays to go over. With regular, you have Rock Slide, which 3-hit KOs, so not the best. However, because of your equally good crit rate as Zapdos, I'm gonna say that you definitely lose most of the time. But with a crit, at least once, and winning some speed ties, you can win 1v1. But you need a little bit too much of that to go in your favor, so it's still gonna be a bad matchup. And next we have Paldean Tauros Blaze, who has Fire Blast, which means you can burn the Drill Peck. That's nice, but still, you definitely do better. It might be enough to recall it could go either way, but I don't think so, because you still need to get a burn, which is a 30% chance, but not guaranteed. So Zapdos probably wins 1v1 anyways. And then Aqua just gets absolutely demolished. Like, there's not even anything to talk about here. It's just pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. Not even like it has anything to hurt it with in the first place. So here is the tier list. We're going to start off with base form. Now, I think this should just go in the bad matchup instead of unwinnable. For the most part, I agree with everything else here. Now for Blaze, Blaze is a lot different. I think both of these we actually move to good matchups, to be honest. This can go... I'll be nice and put in could go either way. And I'll put Slowbro in bad matchups too. It's technically unwinnable, but since you're faster, you can always just pivot. Now for Aqua, this gets moved to great. This goes back down here. This goes to unwinnable. This also goes to unwinnable. This goes to great. And I believe these go here. So very weird tier list. Overall, I'd probably put... let's say overall, let's just put this here, here. This is how I'm going to represent the Tauros overall. And, yeah, I was very surprised. I think it's going to be very, very hard to justify using PALDEAN Tauros over regular. As you can see here, it has merit. It has legitimate merit. And that alone is already pretty great. I think PALDEAN Tauros is pretty cool. And I'm very happy that it actually got some rep in Scarlet and Violet. But also not, because if I knew that there was a chance he could have had a Mega Tauros in Legends ZA, I probably would have chosen that instead. But oh well, like, beggars can't be choosers. And I'm just happy that the forms look cool. And I'm also happy we have a burning form with Blaze, since fire types are freaking awesome. But what do you think about PALDEAN Tauros? Am I overselling it? Would he not be that good? Does he have his merits? And would you ever consider using him for Gen 1 OU? And where do you think the forms would end up? Would they all end up in underuse? Would they be in different tiers? Let me know in the comments below. This is Groundback. Thank you so much for 1,000 subscribers. And I look forward to hearing from you.